so you know, your audio is very quiet and a little garbled.
Okay. Just a second.
Sounds like you're not on your headset.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is it better? Okay. Just know if my dogs bark, I'll have to hit mute because sometimes when they hear other people talking, they'll start barking. So sorry. So brand new headset too. Okay, Daryl has started the recording. Just as a reminder, he also put the link in the chat to sign in for the meeting so that we can get accurate attendance. If you haven't done that already, please sign in. And I believe we are ready to get going. So I'll call the meeting to order at 10:02. And I didn't see, is Tracy on?
Yep, I'm here.
Yep. Hey, Tracy. If you're ready, go ahead with the issue tracker update.
Okay. Do you have it to pull up, Kathy?
Is that the you said the tracker?
Yeah. We have a couple items on there still.
Let me pull that up.
Okay. Okay, the first one I went ahead and added to this. It's not necessarily an issue, but just as a reminder that we've been working with Intrado and individual PSAPs so that we can begin to roll out the ECATs to everyone. I think I have Jeff on the call as well.
I am here, yes.
Hey,
sorry.
Jeff. We had hoped to be rolling this out to PSAPs this week. That was our goal when we set out phase one. But we only have the paperwork from a handful of the PSAPs out there. So did want to take just a couple minutes and remind everyone that there is some documentation that Intrado is going to need. This is the solution that was in the tariff that is available to all of the PSAPs. We can't get rolling on that until we have everything in hand. And when I checked with Intrado yesterday, there's, like I said, there's only 3 or 4 PSAPs that have submitted their documentation. Jeff, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but I know it's something we were hoping to finish before the end of the year.
No, I think you covered. That's exactly what we're looking for right now.
So I think the ask for everyone on this call and others is if you do have questions, you need help filling out the documentation, give me or Courtney a quick call. I know we've spent a few minutes with 4 or 5 PSAPs making sure that, they understand what we're looking for. So we're more than willing to jump on the phone with you individually and help you out. We really would like to roll out those phase 1 PSAPs next week if we can.
Tracy, can you drop your email in the chat and I'll pass it along to ECCs?
Yes, I will. So just to plug on that, if you guys have any questions, reach out. We'll help you get going. I know Intrado's ready to roll this out as well. So we want to at least get a few PSAPs going next week. We have left the Pitkin and Vail call routing change on here for quite a while. This is something that really is between Motorola and the PSAPs. Vicky was working on it, and now from Lumen, Andrew has hopped in. Motorola needs to update the CPE. As soon as they do that, we are ready to do some testing and make sure that this gets taken care of. But that's where we're at on that one. Cheyenne Mountain, we did have a little movement on this one. Jeff and I were involved too. Basically, we're going to turn down that PSAP and everything is going to go to the Air Force Base. Lumen did submit the RG-29 to Intrado. We have a follow-up meeting on Monday, and we're hopeful that everything will be completed and we can do a couple test calls to the Air Force Base with them. And that one should come off by the time we meet next time. And then the last one on there, 911 transfer capability across state lines. This is one that I know Wes Horn had talked to you guys about. And The decision at the time was we had to finish rolling out the ESInet statewide, which we have done this year. I actually have an internal meeting scheduled on Tuesday of next week with the team that is working on this in the state of Florida, because they have the ESInet too, and they're working on being able to transfer across state lines. So I have asked to be included in those conversations and meetings to find out what Jeff and I can do along with Kevin Newton to get this rolling in Colorado for you guys. So I don't have a ton of detail on it yet. I'll attend the first session next week, and hopefully we'll be able to get this going for everyone. Any questions on any of the outstanding items on our tracker? Or anything I should add? Okay.
The county, our agencies, I do have that with our call handling vendor so that they can fill out a lot of that information, but I'll get on it to see how long it's going to take.
Okay. Okay. Pull this out here. This particular graph looks a little skewed from most of them, and it's because of that one right there in the middle. It was a null response. It means we weren't reaching the server. So the way that the nodes are set up, it's going to keep pinging that same server until it works. Typically, the scale there on the left looks quite different, but because of that one day, we had to increase it a little bit. Everything else is within the norm. It was just, I did have the NOC take a look, and the only thing they came back with on that particular day is we weren't reaching the server, so it just kept pounding it. Nothing that was alarming or network performance wise that became impacted, but that's why this chart looks a little bit off from months past. We're going to look at the MOS by PSAP. On the next one, this is where we're ranking voice quality. Happy to report there's nothing exciting in here. As everyone knows, anything that's down at a level 1, which we don't see, would be poor performance, and 5 is excellent. We're right above 4 on all of our testing, so that's what we like to see. We look at the ECMC route. This is Longmont and Miami. Again, same as the chart above. A 1 we would not like to see, and a 5 is excellent. Everything was within the norm for July. If we ever were to see something 3.5 or lower is when my NOC would become engaged and figure out what was going on. So nothing alarming for the month of July. Yes.
Just FYI, the score in the tariff says anything under a 4 is out of range. So I don't know if that's something you need to let the NOC know about, since you said 3.5 is when they would normally get involved.
Yep, let me jot that down. I have some time set up with my NOC manager because I have a question for him on this next chart, so I'm going to add that. I'll share the tariff with him, see what he has in. I could have just copied it down incorrectly as well. So we'll follow up on that one. I mentioned to Daryl this morning on the packet loss. This one, I do have a question because the tariff is 0.5, and we do have one date, looks like between the second and the third week, where we went at a 0.06, and I did open a ticket. I have a meeting with Carl to kind of figure out what happened during this time. I wanted to have that answered before the call today, but he's been out of the office. So we do have one day in there that I need to open an investigative ticket up on my side if it has not already been done, because that is something that we haven't come across in, oh gosh, I think many months since we've been going through this. So I need to see what happened there around July, looks like 15th maybe, and why we went above.
And if I'm reading it correctly, because the tariff says packet loss less than or equal to 0.5%.
Yep.
And this says, this one over 0.06. If that's a percentage, which I'm assuming it is, then we're still well within range. But it would be good to get some clarification on that.
Right. It's not out of scope with the tariff, but I haven't, at least since we've been reviewing these in this calendar year, I haven't seen anything spike up there. So
Right,
I'm
it's
just curious.
unusual. Yeah.
Yep. I don't know if we were, I don't know what was going on during that day, but I don't like to see anything that's out of the norm when we print these out.
Yeah.
And the same thing happened on the one below. We're completely within the tariff rules, but we had a couple there that hit about 350 microseconds. So it's, like I said, it's still under the 20 milliseconds that are in the tariff, but we had a couple dates where it's a little out of the norm. So it's just interesting to know what happened. I don't know, again, an event, an incident, an issue, a glitch. I'm going to ask Carl about that as well. So nothing alarming. We like to see these graphs be kind of boring and generic, but anything that's out of the norm, we like to investigate as well.
That's it.
Yep, that should be the last one. Any other questions, comments? I'll get my email down in the chat for you guys. And like I said, if any of the PSAPs have any questions on the paperwork for ECATs, let us know.
And then you were going to get back to us on stats from June because there was a
On that last day.
yeah.
Yep, I did find out, and I apologize, I didn't reprint it. I sent it to you via email, Daryl, but it didn't capture the entire day. The timestamp when the data was pulled out of Splunk, it did not go until 11:59 p.m. on the last day of the month, and that's why it wasn't capturing a full 24 hours.
I'm pulling that up right now so people can see what we're talking about.
Yep. It's that very last day there at the back. It should have pulled until 11:59 p.m. and it did not on June 30th.
So that last bar is an anomaly from the reporting.
Yes, it actually, when I checked with Carl, it came in at like 6:10. So if you look on the side there at the 500, it was 6:10, which would be right where we expect it to be. But it, for whatever reason, I don't know why I can't go back to the last day of the month and know why it didn't run until 11:59 p.m. But I did have the ability to pull it again.
Gotcha.
Which is great. We can only go back 90 days and pull this data. So I'm, number one, glad that we caught it and that we were able to find out what happened. We just need to make sure. I mean, it does this down to the second, right? And it does military time. It just didn't. It stopped in the middle of the day, actually in the morning.
Okay.
Are we ready to, I just wanted to, can everybody hear me okay?
You sound like you're underwater a little bit.
I don't know what's causing that. I was just on another call and I had no issues whatsoever. So I'm not sure what's causing that. I just wanted to make sure with the things that we talked about at the last meeting in regards to the letter that CenturyLink wanted to send out. I wanted to make sure that they received the list of all the PSAPs in the state, which is what they asked for. And I understand they asked for that and the state's default routing. And my understanding is that they received both of those.
Yeah, that's correct. I'm not managing the OSP migration. It's something that's done by an internal team. So Judy Okandi is leading that up. She has all the information that she needs. I believe it was Alloy is going to be the first one, and they haven't started the migration yet. I also have asked them to share. I know that, ideally they'd love to be the full state of Colorado, but their footprint isn't that big yet. So I have asked Judy again to get us a list as to where their footprint is. I think it was Kimberly had asked how many PSAPs would we be testing, and that's what I've asked Judy to come back with. So nothing has started with that, but you did provide all the information that we need.
And I can send that to you, Tracy, if that works, and you can forward it. The steps that I came up with was to contact the PSAP 24 hours before the scheduled testing day to let them know that we're testing the next day. Also call them immediately before the testing to make sure that the center is able to handle that. And then at the very last call, make sure they let them know that they are done testing.
Yeah, you can certainly send that over to me and I'll share it with Judy and her team.
On to the ECATS deployment update. Tim, did you want to talk to that? Speak to that?
I don't see Tim on the call.
I don't think he's on. Kathy, I don't have any updates other than what I mentioned at the beginning, is that Lumen and Intrado are just waiting to get all of the paperwork back from the PSAPs. Ideally, we'd like to have that group of folks that were in phase one. We'd like to have everyone's paperwork in before we start. So that's kind of what we're looking for. I don't know that Tim had any other updates other than that, but Jeff and I can certainly ask him offline.
Kathy, if you're speaking, I think you're on mute.
She has lost audio.
Maybe you could call in on a phone.
Yes. Jennifer, do you want to run it?
Sure, no problem. Actually, it's a good time for Matt to jump in. So Matt's got a suggestion on getting some of the data for the ECATS deployment, and I will let him speak for himself.
Yeah, when we were reaching out to Comtech to pull all of the latest wireless routing sector data for Wesco for the wireless routing analysis module. Comtech responded with a question, is everyone in the entire state going to be making the same requests? And should he just pull all wireless sectors for the entire state and give them to me to provide? And I said yes and no, because I don't have that authority. We only have it for our three authorities here, so to speak. But it sort of brings up a point. Maybe there's a way to greatly streamline and simplify at least the wireless sector data part of this project for everyone statewide. Can we come up with a way for the authorities and PSAPs to grant authority to, say, the users group, task force, PUC 911 program, some appropriate level organization to pull that data statewide from Comtech and T-Mobile, and also, if needed, grant such authorization to the Intrado wireless unit. It seems like there's really might be a way to simplify this for everyone instead of doing 58 or more separate data requests.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Yes, please. I request once a year for the authorities that I have for from all of the carriers, and sometimes that's a tedious process. So whatever I can do, let me know. I could certainly ask the authorities I work for if they would want to be in on a conglomerate.
I think this would simplify things for a lot of us, but it might also be very helpful to a number of authorities.
Well, I know it would be helpful for me.
And Eddie Lemaire at Comtech would probably appreciate just pulling one statewide report.
Yeah, I mean, the data that Entrado needs is going to be the same for every PSAP. So however you guys, I mean, we obviously don't have the authority to have them do anything, but whatever works best for you. But like I said, Entrado is going to need the same information for everyone.
And to me, the question is, what does Comtech need to feel comfortable providing that information? Do they need any sort of proof that all of the 911 authorities individually have authorized the ESInet users group to request that information? Or can the ESInet users group simply say, you know, all of our voting members are made up of all of the 911 authorities, so if we say that we have the authority, then we do. If that would be good enough for Comcast to provide that or Comtech, excuse me, to provide that information. Matt?
So I've posed that question to Eddie Lemaire at Comtech, and I could do the same with contacts at T-Mobile.
Okay. Yeah, to me, that's what this hinges on, is what authority do they require from us? What proof of authority do they require from us? If they need proof that all of the 911 authorities have agreed to it, then we could start circulating, you know, a form MOU or something for them to sign. But hopefully, it wouldn't require that much. But if we do need something like that, maybe one of the attorneys that sometimes participate, I see Joe on the call, maybe they could help us create a template document for that purpose.
I think I'd suggest asking those companies to provide us a copy of the form that they want. So it's exactly what they're saying they need to provide the information.
Yeah, it's a good point. If it gets to that point, maybe, you know, maybe they're happy to just provide it to the ESInet users group if the ESInet users group asks.
So I wonder if, since the users group is meeting today, should we entertain some sort of a decision or recommendation? What do other folks think about this?
Wow, everybody must need some coffee.
Right? Kathy, you said you're back on the call?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Oh, yay. Okay. Gotta be the computer then. Yeah. I think I was just typing in the chat. I think a recommendation would be a good idea coming from this group. So I think, I mean, I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks about that as well, but I would like to hear from everybody, some people on this call, how they feel about that, what they think about it.
Pueblo County says in the chat that they support that.
Anybody else?
Shannon says she'd support it.
Thornton's not a voting member, but I certainly would recommend proceeding with the recommendation.
Thanks, Jody.
And Jody, you are a voting member? Just so you know.
Looks like we have quite a bit of support in the chat. So I think a recommendation is a good way for this group to go. But I'm not sure, Daryl, can you just let me know what we need to do that?
Well, it looks like there is a general consensus to support it. So I would say, since Matt's already started this conversation, Matt, if you wanted to continue and see what they need, if they'll just take a request from the ESInet users group as a legitimate request, then we can just move from there. Otherwise, if they need more proof of authority, then Matt, maybe just get with me and Jennifer and Kathy and see where we need to go from there.
Sure. So I guess and I'm happy to do that. I am waiting to hear back from Eddie for Comtech's sake anyway. So this sort of begs the question, is it going to be the ESInet users group? Are we making a recommendation that the task force take charge of the collection and provision on behalf of everyone?
And before you answer that question, Daryl, could I just ask for a point of clarification? Can you state who is a voting member of the ESInet users group?
Every 911 authority is a voting member of the ESInet users group.
Thank you.
That's why I said that Thornton is, because they have their own 911 authority.
For our three authorities that I'm representing, we would be fine with the users group, the task force, or even the PUC 911 program staff taking point on receiving these data and then providing them to Tracy and Courtney for the benefit of the statewide project.
So I think probably the users group might be the most appropriate because it is made up of all of the local 911 authorities. And since we've got clear consensus today that the 911 authorities that are participating at least are fine with us moving forward with that, I think that might be enough.
Okay.
The program could request it, but we don't have any statutory authority to do that. So it would be, it'd be up to Comtech or not if they wanted to honor that request.
Sure. Yeah. I just received an email from Comtech. Eddie can provide a full state level for data poll for Colorado. This email from you can serve as all the documentation I need to do it.
Awesome.
And then there's some additional details. But essentially,
Matt,
essentially he just needs a request from me or any one of us, apparently.
I'm more than happy. That's okay. I'm more than happy to be the one to request that as the chair of this group this year.
Sure.
I'll be happy to work with you on that, Matt, if that's okay.
Yeah, why don't we do that in tandem? I think that's more appropriate with you as the chair of the users group.
That sounds good.
Wonderful.
Jackie has her hand up. I don't know if you can see that.
I do.
Oh, there it is.
I have another question.
Sorry, Jackie, go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay.
Jackie.
And then would we be able to get these for our individual authorities? I mean, I don't mind sorting it, I guess. I'm just wondering, because I don't want anybody to have to do all that work, but
I don't see why not.
perfect. So I will wait on my request because it was on my to-do list this week.
Okay, so I think I'll take as an action item to try to replicate this with T-Mobile as well. As far as the Intrado wireless unit, Tracy, Courtney, can Kathy and I just send a similar email to you for that authorization, or do you need something more formal?
I would have to probably check with Tim from the Lumen side. And I don't know if Courtney is on for Entrado. She's not typically included in this
Right.
call, but maybe Kim Haig can take it back and see. I don't know what documentation Entrado would need. But Jeff and I can, I mean, if you want to send it to me, we can make sure that it's all right with Tim.
Sounds good.
Yep, sounds like a plan. Okay, Matt, anything else we need to talk about with that? Or we got our action items ready?
I think we're squared away. Knowing me, something might come to mind in 5 minutes, but I think we're good.
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else have anything else they want to add to that?
I just want to thank Matt for coming up with the idea of doing this. I think finding ways for this users group to help facilitate the process is a great use of this group and will make things go a lot more smoothly.
Yes, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Okay, let's.
you betcha.
Oh, sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
I was just saying, yeah, you betcha.
Okay. Okay, we can move on to the next one then. See 911 area code calls from wireless devices that are not NSI. Daryl, you have an update on that?
I do. It's not a very good update, but it's an update. I met with FCC, Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau personnel, including an engineer, to talk about this issue. And the engineer, frankly, I felt was a little belligerent even, maybe. They might be going a little too far, but the message I received back was that there was not a technical solution to fix this. If the companies do not have a roaming agreement, then they cannot transmit data from roaming cell towers to the home network for the customer. And that's what's happening with these, is if they're on a roaming network, they call 911, the roaming network does not have a roaming agreement with the home network, so they're unable to transmit data with the call, and as a result, the call is coming into the PSAP without any associated data, which means that they're coming in with a 911 area code instead of the actual phone number of the subscriber. And they did not seem to be willing to discuss whether or not there are technical solutions that could be developed, only that there are no technical solutions as of right now. So what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to continue talking to the other states, and particularly Kentucky, which brought this up originally as an issue that they were seeing in their state. And if there is enough consensus among the other states, we can keep pushing on the FCC to at least talk to the wireless providers to see if they can come up with a technical solution. It seems like maybe an abbreviated version of a roaming agreement where they at least transmit 911 data. But it sounded like to do that, they would have to create pathways for them to transmit that data with every roaming provider, whether they have a roaming agreement or not. And that's where the sticking point was, that they didn't want to do that. But this is a big enough issue, and it's very likely to result in a very poor outcome on a 911 call someday if we don't get this fixed. So I'm going to continue working on it.
Thank you, Daryl. Any questions or anything about that? Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, move on to the parking lot document. Just wait for Daryl to bring it up.
And the idea behind this is that we were going to not necessarily go over each of these items every meeting, but if there's anything on this list that people want to pull off and talk about further, we can.
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. And Tracy, just so you know, I did move the Cheyenne Mountain over to that into the parking lot. So if for some reason you want it pulled back out, you know, or somebody from Lumen or CenturyLink, just let us know.
Okay, yeah, I'm hoping we can take that one down next time.
Okay, sounds good. Anything on this that anybody wants to speak to? Okay. Hearing none. We'll go on to new business. Daryl and Jennifer, update on Lumen reliability proceeding.
So there's not much to report. CenturyLink / Lumen did file its BES improvement plan application. A number of you are involved in that proceeding as well, so you're aware of the current status of it. The application that they filed was reliant on getting several NTIA grants that they had applied for, but they didn't get any of those grants. They did suggest that they might withdraw the application, but Bretza filed Brett, Joe, it was a motion, wasn't it, that you filed that the application be kept open until this is resolved?
Yeah, it was Bretza and Douglas and El Paso Teller jointly.
Okay. So yeah, there was a motion filed by those 911 authorities that the application proceeding be kept open until CenturyLink is able to file an amended application. So the judge has continued this until next February, and there is a pre-hearing conference scheduled in February to discuss this further. So that's where we're at now, is that we're essentially waiting for CenturyLink to come up with some revisions to that application, or state otherwise what they want to do with the application. And I forgot to mention that CenturyLink filed a reply to that motion saying that they do not oppose the application being kept open for that purpose.
Any questions?
And I was going to say,
Sorry, go ahead, Daryl.
I was sorry, I just walked over you, but I was just going to say I can't talk about the merits of the application. There isn't much about the application to talk about right now because of the status of it. But if anybody has any procedural questions, I can try to answer those.
Not hearing any, Daryl. But if anybody thinks of anything later, I'm sure you can email Daryl about it if you have any questions. Okay, moving on to the next one. I do not see Kimberly on the call. She wanted to speak to an outage. Daryl or Jennifer, did she provide you guys with any other information? I have very limited information.
Yes, she did provide some additional information. It's, as far as we know, it's still an ongoing outage, and I see Jeff Winkleman's hand up, so he might have an update on that as well. I believe what she wanted to talk about, and she can't right now because they have a bridge open to discuss this issue that she's working on for Jackson County. But I think what she wanted to talk about was difficulty that she had in communicating with the NOC over the course of this outage. But I don't want to put words in her mouth, so hopefully she can provide us with an update on this at the next meeting. There will be an outage investigation at this point because, one, Kimberly requested it, and two, the duration of the outage meets the criteria for an investigation.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, did you have something to add?
The only thing I was going to say is Daryl had mentioned they did have a call. I was on that call prior to jumping on here, and they were working through it. They had a cast of quite a few people on there, Intrado, Lumen, agencies, and they were working through it and actually digging into the technical resources. So they're still trying to investigate as to what the cause is. But as Daryl pointed, she had a call on that. So hopefully we'll hear shortly.
Okay, thanks, Jeff.
And I will state that this is continuing a trend, unfortunately, that we're seeing of outages taking longer and longer to resolve. The average duration of outages has really increased over the last year. And I'm not sure, what the cause is of that extended time to resolve outages, but it's something that, Jeff, I hope you take internally and talk to people about, and if there's anything that can be done to direct more resources to resolving these outages in a more timely manner, I think that would be of benefit to everybody.
I can say that we have had calls internally. I've talked with Tim a little bit about this also, and it's being addressed. We're looking into as to why the outages are occurring is the primary focus, but the length of the time for the restoral, I will bring that back up and let them know it's an issue or a concern of the group.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Daryl, and thank you, Jeff. Okay, moving on. Next is open discussion. Any questions or concerns from any of the PSAPs to Lumen? Okay, hearing none. Any open issues from Lumen to the PSAPs that need immediate action or follow-up other than what we've spoken about today? Okay, then we have public comment. Any non-voting members are welcome to provide comments during this time. We have any non-voting members that would like to bring anything forward? Okay, hearing none, it looks like we're at the end of our meeting. I will call this meeting adjourned at 10:43. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and I apologize for my technological issues that I had today. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.